A year from our past.
In a year from our past, we'll be doing a brief history look back at a year from each decade and what we remember from those years.
So Scott will be looking at 1982, and I'll be covering 1992.
So I'll get it started with 1982 movies. Some popular movies that came out in 1982 were Tron, 48 Hours, Rocky III, Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, Gandhi, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, The Dark Crystal, First Blood, Tootsie, Blade Runner, The Thing, Poltergeist, Conan the Barbarian, and of course E.T. The best picture for 1982 was Gandhi, and the highest grossing movie from 1982 was E.T. with approximately $663 million worldwide.
And for 1992, some popular movies released were Reservoir Dogs, Aladdin, Scent of a Woman, A Few Good Men, Unforgiven, Last of the Mohicans, Batman Returns, Wayne's World, Basic Instinct, and The Bodyguard. The film that walked away with the Best Picture Oscar was Unforgiven, and the highest grossing film of 1992 was Aladdin, with $504 million earned worldwide.
So I remember pretty much all of the movies from both decades. From 1992, actually, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Last of the Mohicans.
Great film.
I really enjoyed that film. I just watched it again recently, actually.
Yeah, it's great.
And of course, Wayne's World was big for me. I was really into that during that time. Unforgiven, I enjoyed. It's not a best picture for me. Like Last of the Mohicans was better to me.
I think that should have won also.
Basic Instinct was just a thriller that showed some Sharon Stone snatch.
Yeah.
And The Bodyguard, I was surprised. I kind of liked that movie, actually.
Well, it has that iconic song, right, by Whitney Houston?
Yeah. I don't know if it was the music that I liked. But.
Okay.
And of course, from 1982, I mean, First Blood was a great movie.
I remember in British Columbia, they filmed some of that in one of the national parks. And in the pamphlet, when you go in there, it says this is where First Blood was filmed.
That's the first Rambo, for those that don't know.
Yeah. Great movie.
I'm not a big fan of Blade Runner, surprisingly enough. It kind of was boring to me.
Yeah, it's kind of, a lot of people consider it to be like really high up on that sci-fi list, but I like it. I don't think it's amazing or anything, but yeah, it's watchable for me.
Tron was different. Rocky III, I think that was the one with Mr. T.
Yeah.
Not a Star Trek fan, really, so I didn't care for that movie.
I've heard that a lot of people who are Star Trek diehard fans consider The Wrath of Khan to be the best.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High was really good and funny. Out of all those movies, the only ones I saw at that time, like in 1982, was E.T. and maybe The Dark Crystal.
Okay.
All the others I saw later on, like The Thing and Poltergeist shortly after. Conan the Barbarian was one of my favorite movies, actually, in the action fantasy type.
That's the one that kind of put Arnold on the map first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for 1982 movies, I'd have to say First Blood I remember watching because I have older brothers who love that movie. I didn't see Blade Runner back then. I saw it, later on in life. I also saw The Thing later on in life, which I think is amazing. I think it's a really good film. And E.T.'s a classic. Haven't seen many of the others from 82. The 1992 list I've seen, I think all of these. Reservoir Dogs, I think, is awesome.
Did you see any of those in 1992?
Well, yeah, I mean, Aladdin, obviously, and...
Batman, maybe?
Yeah, Batman Returns. Yeah, I think I saw Wayne's World back then, too. I didn't see, Reservoir Dogs until later on because, obviously, it's a very violent movie. But I really like old-school Tarantino films. Mm-hmm. I still think he makes pretty good stuff nowadays, but I think Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction are my favorite because they're a little bit more gritty.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and like later films of his, like I felt like Django Unchained, a lot of the scenes felt like, it was like a stage play, Didn't have that raw, gritty energy like Reservoir Dogs.
All right, and in music in 1982, some of the hit songs were The Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, Jack and Diane by John Cougar Mellencamp, or just John Cougar at the time, Always on My Mind by Willie Nelson, Private Eyes by Hall & Oates, Don't Stop Believin' by Journey, Working for the Weekend by Loverboy, I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden, and the song of the year was Physical by Olivia Newton-John, according to the Billboard Awards, or the Billboard Top 100. And Always on My Mind, sung by Willie Nelson, won the best, or the song of the year for the Grammy.
1992 in music, we had Jump by Criss Cross, Under the Bridge by Red Hot Chili Peppers, Tears in Heaven by Eric Clapton, To Be With You by Mr. Big, Black or White by Michael Jackson, Achy Breaky Heart by Billy Ray Cyrus, and Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. The song of the year, according to the Billboard Top 100, was End of the Road by Boyz II Men, and Eric Clapton walked away with Grammy for Best Song, Tears in Heaven, which I think was written about his deceased son.
Right, which is a sad story, but
Yeah.
basically I think the kid fell out of a window.
Yeah, accidentally fell out of a window. Tragic.
Yeah. 1992 music, none of them really stick out to me. I mean, Black and White was actually a pretty good song.
Mm-hmm.
Achy Breaky Heart, I mean, you could hear that everywhere.
Yep.
Smells Like Teen Spirit reminds me of that year where I was when I first got that album.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a song that really sticks out. I don't know what End of the Road is. Never heard Boyz II Men. I'm sure if I heard it, I would.
Yeah, I think Boyz II Men, it's one of those things, I don't know their songs by name, but if I heard it, I'd recognize it.
Right. Criss Cross, Jump, those are the two kids that wore their clothes backwards, I think.
Yep.
And Under the Bridge, that was a really good Red Hot Chili Pepper album.
Yeah.
Not Under the Bridge, that was a song from the album, but that album was pretty good.
What was the album? Something about sex magic or?
Blood Sugar Sex Magic, I think.
Right. Yeah, that was a great album.
From 82, I mean, most of those songs I obviously heard on the radio. Didn't like all of them. I'm actually a big Hall & Oates fan. They had so many classic songs. And I did get to see them in concert when I was a little older.
Yeah, I like Hall & Oates.
I think a lot of people wouldn't know who they are now, but
There's a guy with the mustache and then the other dude, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Eye of the Tiger was a classic song from Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
Jack and Diane it's a really good tune. Loverboy, I think they're Canadian, right?
Yeah.
So it was nice to see them on the songs of the year.
Mm.
And I Love Rock and Roll is a pretty cool Jonah Jett song.
And my memory of the 1982 songs, I was, this is before I was born, but like I said, a lot of these songs came back in a big way when I was in high school. A lot of my friends in my hometown, they like to drink to songs like Working for the Weekend, Don't Stop Believing, and I remember hearing Jack and Diane quite a bit, like at parties. And Eye of the Tiger is kind of like one of those, you see it in like a montage where somebody's preparing to...
Some type of pump up.
Yeah, it's like when they're working out and they're getting ready for the final battle or something.
And Olivia Newton-John was huge in the early 80s.
Yeah. I remember hearing that song too. For the 1992 music, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Under the Bridge, that remains a really good song. Tears in Heaven is a bit of a downer, but yeah, it's pretty well written. Black or White had that really famous music video, didn't it? Where it transformed Michael Jackson's face.
Yeah, it was
morphing
of, different people,
different
races,
different ethnicities and races, yeah. Achy Breaky Heart, I remember this distinctly. I remember it was huge when I was in elementary school, and like kids were dancing to it and singing to it.
Yeah, that's what's her name? Miley Cyrus?
Yeah, Miley Cyrus.
For people who don't know, that's her father.
Yeah. And Smells Like Teen Spirit. I think this is the song that put Nirvana on the map. I don't think they desired to be a mainstream band, but after this song came out, they became pretty well known. Song of the year, End of the Road, never heard of it. Maybe if you put it on, I'd recognize it. And like I mentioned, Tears in Heaven. I think the first cassette tape I bought was Eric Clapton's Unplugged.
Yeah. I think that won Album of the Year that year, too.
Yeah. That's the first cassette I ever bought. Some people can remember the first cassette they bought or the first CD they bought.
Yep.
That one was cassette for me.
My first cassette was Def Leppard, Pyromania. In 1982's TV news and other events, in TV, the first episode of David Letterman's Late Night aired on NBC, and the Weather Channel aired on cable TV for the first time. Popular toys that released in 1982 were the Atari 5200 and the Glowworm. Some technical breakthroughs from 1982, the first CD player was sold in Japan, and the first implant of a permanent artificial heart was done. And in some news and events from 1982, the largest cash robbery in history, almost $10 million in cash, was stolen in New York City. I think it was an armored car, I'm not sure. The Ocean Ranger, the world's largest oil rig, sank in the North Atlantic. The Canada Act is signed, giving Canada full sovereignty and independence from England. Argentina invades the Falkland Islands, and the UK take it back. The first issue of US Today is published, and Epcot Center opens in Disney World.
And for 1992 in TV, the Cartoon Network is launched, Barney and Friends debuts on PBS, and Sinead O'Connor causes controversy when she rips up a picture of Pope John Paul II on NBC's Saturday Night Live. Also in 1992, the Seinfeld episode, The Contest, is broadcast on NBC. Despite its controversy, the episode will go on to win an Emmy Award and be named as the #1 episode of all time by TV Guide. Some popular toy releases in 1992 were Troll Dolls. And for this one, Troll Dolls actually, they started in the United States as a toy fad in the early 1960s, from 1963 to 1965. The originals were of the highest quality, also known as Damn Dolls, and featured sheep wool hair and glass eyes. In 1992, the plastic versions were released in North America and were a huge hit among boys and girls. Some technical breakthroughs of 1992, the IBM Simon, a touchscreen mobile phone and personal digital assistant considered the first smartphone, was introduced. And on December 3rd, the first text message was sent. The message read, "Merry Christmas." Some notable news events from 1992 include John Gotti, the Teflon boss, is sentenced to life in prison. Bill Clinton became the U.S. president, and LA riots occurred after the acquittal of 4 white police officers accused of beating black motorist Rodney King. Also in 1992, the U.S. forces left the Philippines, ending nearly a century of American military presence. And the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, is signed on December 17th, 1992.
So a lot of the stuff from 1992, obviously, I remember. I remember John Gotti. I definitely remember the LA riots. The Seinfeld thing, is that the one where they make a bet who can hold off from jerking off the longest?
Yeah. Or for masturbating, because
Right.
Elaine's involved as well.
It's one where Kramer comes in and slams the money down and says, "I'm out."
Yeah, he slams the money down and he says, "I'm out."
Okay, I remember that. As far as the news goes, like from 1982, I don't remember pretty much anything. I've never been to Disney World, so I know of the Epcot Center, but the Canada Act thing I might know of, not directly, but like when I was a kid in elementary school, every morning we had to sing "O Canada" and say the "God Save the Queen" thing.
Oh, really? You had to say the "God Save the Queen" thing as well?
One of those, yeah. Something regarding England. Like we always had a photo of Queen Elizabeth in our classrooms and stuff. And maybe that disappeared after that.
Most likely, yeah, because I remember singing "O Canada," but nothing to do with the Queen or anything.
And obviously David Letterman, I watched a lot of when I was older. So it's cool to see that he started off in 1982 with NBC.
For me, for the 1992, I do remember Sinead O'Connor ripping up the picture of Pope John Paul II. This caused a huge controversy. I don't think she was welcome back to that TV program.
Actually, I remember that a lot too. I watched that live, so I didn't think anything big of it at the time, but...
Yeah, there have been a few artists over the years who've done like these kind of political things on SNL. Like I remember, I think Eddie Vedder wrote something about like women's rights on his arms as he was performing on SNL. The Seinfeld episode, The Contest, I don't think I understood at that time what masturbation was. I was too young for that, but I remember...
I was probably masturbating at the time.
Yeah, it was a little early for me, but I remember my dad loving Seinfeld, and he was laughing his ass off at this episode in particular, but I just didn't understand what it meant. Troll dolls, yeah, I remember my sister collected them. I wasn't a big fan. I was into like more like G.I. Joes and, action figures. technical breakthroughs. I don't remember any of the text message thing or anything like that. And for the news events, I remember seeing the LA riots on TV. I didn't really understand what that was all about. And John Gotti, I didn't learn about until later in life.
Of course, there's a lot more music, movies, and news events from both 1982 and 1992, so feel free to let us know about your favorites and your memories of these specific years in the comments below, wherever you find this podcast.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you regarding these years and get your feedback. Now let's move on to the main topic of this episode. It's time for Battle of the Decade. Thanks for watching that clip, and if you like what you saw, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Leave us your comments below and check out more at 10yearsapart.com. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. You can find the full episode of that podcast this clip was from, plus other videos from us right here. Thanks again.